Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm doing a review today on the Z87X-UD5H from Gigabyte. This is going to be another kind of Tech and 10 session with Sin from sinhardware.com, which is me. Today I'm going to be looking at Gigabyte's basically top enthusiast type platform. So the UD5H sits above the UD4H, but there really isn't too much above the UD5H other than the OC Force, the Sniper 5, and I believe a UD7TH as well as a UD5TH that's coming out soon as well. But those are Thunderbolt boards, and this is not a Thunderbolt board. So this is the highest level UD number and then H model, and it has some really cool features. The UD5H has typically been something that's been feature-packed, but also kind of in the affordable range. I think this board right now is about $230 on Newegg, which is pretty affordable for the amount of features and the quality it gives you. So, without ado, let's start off with the UD5H. So the UD5H is the first UD board in the line series. It's actually the cheapest board, except the OC board, that has the enhanced fan control due to something called EC. And we can see all the fan headers, right? We can count them. So we got one here. Actually, let me get my pink pointer. So 1, 2, 3. The white one is a CPU fan. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. There's one here. That's 4. One here is 5. One here 6. One here 7. And yeah, I believe 7 fan headers. So 7 fan headers on this motherboard should be more than enough. And they should all be controllable through the BIOS and through Windows. Okay, so all 7 are controllable through 6 controls, and one of those controls actually combines 2 fan headers into one. So that's the fan control on this board. It's pretty good. Right now, some people were having some, they wanted EasyTune to like auto launch and auto apply their settings that they set through Windows. I mean, this is apart from the BIOS, because the BIOS sets it by itself. But that should be fixed very soon in the latest, next edition of EasyTune, I am told. So first, you obviously notice the new black capacitors on Gigabyte boards. These are all 10K opposed to 5K that a lot of other manufacturers are using. And these are high-quality polymer capacitors that are custom-made from Chemicon for Gigabyte. There's actually a news release on the Chemicon website that they made these capacitors just for Gigabyte. Now, we can go over the VRM. First of all, it's a 16-phase using an IR3563B. And it's using quadruplers, but instead of quadrupling mode, they're working in doubling mode. And this is using the IR3553 power stages along with 35 amp chokes. Okay, so we'll go over this in a little bit when I remove the heat sinks. Next, we can take a look at the OC features, and I actually would like to zoom in on those because I think they're pretty cool. So we'll zoom in there, and I'll go over the OC features a little bit. Okay. So let me make the zoom a little better. Okay, I hope everyone can see this now. Here we have a power button, and the power button will start the board. Reset right here in blue, clear CMOS in black. Okay, 2 switches here. They're both in position 1 right now. The top one is a main BIOS backup BIOS switch. So switch it here goes to the backup, switch it here goes in the main. The next one's a single BIOS, dual BIOS mode, and by default it's in dual BIOS mode. So if there's an issue with the back or the main BIOS, the backup will flash the main. However, if you switch into single BIOS mode, the BIOSes are like they are on all other boards. It's just a single BIOS. And this helps with OC recovery times. Okay, so I've gone into that with a couple other videos, so I don't think I'll go into it now. 2-phase voltage regulator module, which is also digital. This is a real true phase memory VRM. They're kind of hard to find. Postcode LED right here, port 80H. I guess some people refer to it as that. And this will be very beneficial if you're troubleshooting diagnostics and stuff like that. Then we have a USB 3.0 port here with a red, that means on-off charge. 2 TSP, I believe 2546 chips. These are USB 3.0 super speed charging ICs, and they provide higher current. I believe they're actually aligned. One is like here, and the other one is under the heatsink. We'll take a look at those in a little bit. Okay, now here we have extra PCIe power in the form of a SATA power connector. This can provide extra 3, 12, and 5 volts to the PCIe slots. Here we have 10 SATA 6 GB per second ports. The 2 gray are controlled by a Marvel SE9, I believe 9230. yeah, there it's better focus, right? 9230 actually gets 2 PCIe lanes and then outputs these 4 ports. If you only use 1 port or 2 port, then it's still getting 2 PCIe lanes, which makes it like a Marvel SE9182, which is pretty good. That's one of the best Marvel SATA controllers I've ever seen, and this is the improvement on that. Anyways, so here we have 6 SATA ports. All the black ones are from Intel, and they're native. However, if you're having issues with those, you can switch over to Marvel, because Intel still needs to work on their SATA 3 a little bit. Okay, now we have front panel connectors, and then we also have a USB 3.0 port, internal, another one, and this one has a little plug, which is pretty nice and dandy, right? We went over some of these fan connectors. COM port actually is provided by a TPS chip for drivers and receivers. We'll find that in a second. We also have 1394A on this board, which is pretty interesting. From a VT6309P. This actually works off a PCI bus, and I'll tell you how that works in a little bit, because that doesn't actually use a PCIe lane, it uses a PCI lane, which is different. Then we have an ALC898, and ALC898 versus ALC1150, I need to tell you something about this, because I see a lot of people saying, oh, ALC1150 is so much better, and I asked Gigabyte, hey, why didn't you guys switch over like everyone else? And their answer was quite simple. They said the ALC898 isn't inferior to the ALC1150. The ALC1150 just beats it on the output for the headphone, the green jack in the back. That's where the ALC1150 is 115 decibel SNR. The ALC898, however, is 110 decibel SNR on all outputs. So that means that all the other channels on the back, they're all 110. However, the ALC1150 is only 98 decibels on all the other back panels. So it's actually worse than the ALC898 on the other ones, unless you only use headphones, which actually the majority of people, I think, only use headphones. And the front output through this audio jack here is actually the same on both, 110. So that's pretty interesting. Gigabyte also chose to use 2 amps here. They're DRV632, they're line drivers / amplifiers. This one goes to the back headphone jack, and this one goes to the audio output for the front panel. They're actually pretty good, and they support the total SNR range of the chip. Dual Intel NICs, which is something I really like. We'll go over that in a second. One is the small one is a small physical layer device, a PHY, for the gigabit internet in the Intel Mac that's integrated into the PCH. That's what this one is. It's a i217V, and this one is an i210, and this one's integrated all in one. That's why this one's smaller than this one, even though they have the same capabilities. So that's pretty cool, right? That's how Intel works with their integrated Mac, and then also the ALC codec also works with Intel's HD audio codec. I mean HD audio processor, because it's just a codec. It needs a processor. Unlike Creative, which actually does not use that. It has a PCIe lane and all that. Okay, so let's go over the back panel, and then I'll take the heat sinks off. Okay, so we need to zoom out for that. Actually, let me take the heat sinks off first, because actually I've already unscrewed them. Alright, and it's going to look a little odd if I don't do something, because they're going to fall off anyway, you know? You know what I'm saying? Alright, so these I've already unscrewed. Come off pretty easily. You can see there's really good contact between the IR power stages and the heatsink, which is exactly what you want to see. We have a nice heat pipe design going through it. You can see here the heat pipe is pretty well sandwiched in between. It's a really nice design, actually. Gigabyte always does a nice job with gold. They don't make it too flashy or anything. It's kind of like a little bronze-ish. But Gigabyte Gold first came out on the UD7 for P67, and before that I'd never seen gold on a motherboard, and then I guess ASRock really liked it and picked to do gold on theirs, and now Asus is doing a really different type of gold, which I don't really like too much, but heck, colors and everything, right? So here's a Gigabyte PCH, right? The PCH this time has a lower TDP, so there's no actual thermal paste. This is just like a thermal pad. That's kind of interesting. You can see the indentation of the chip. But yeah, okay. So the TDP now is only 4.1 watts on this instead of 6.7 like it was before. So that's pretty cool, right? Okay, now the back panel. So let me try to focus. Yeah, that should be better. 7.1 audio through the back panel. Remember, this is the headphone jack. On the ALC1150, this is 110 decibels, and these are all 98. On the ALC898 used on this board, everything is 110. So it's pretty different. These are all USB 3.0 ports, and they're all provided through Intel, through a hub, through 2 hubs actually. the D7200210, and that's a Renaissance hub, NEC/Renaissance. Then we have a dual HDMI, and we also have a DVI and a display port. Okay, so this is HDMI, this is HDMI, and this is display port, and this is DVI. These two switch together. So if you use this, this will be disabled. If you use this, this will be disabled. So yeah, just keep that in mind when you're doing everything. A nice grounding thing right here for the HDMI. Anyways, here you have a SPDIF out digital. It's the like laser one. These two are Gigabit LAN ports, RJ45, and this is PS/2 from the Super I/O, and 2 more USB 3.0 ports. So pretty simple, easy to go over on the back. Has enough USB for anyone who needs it. If you have issues installing Windows with detection of USB 3.0, because the way Intel's designed their ports is you need the driver. So if you don't have Windows 8 and you have Windows 7 or XP, you can set XHCI to disable to get 2.0 mode, and then install the drivers, and then you're fine. Except XP doesn't have, Intel doesn't have USB 3.0 support for XP, so yeah. Okay, so now back to everything good, right? The cool stuff. So I guess the VRM first, right? Everyone loves Gigabyte's new IR VRMs. I guess, of course, unless you're their competitor, then you probably wouldn't love it. Okay, that should be focused. So we see the ALC, not the ALC, sorry. We see the IR3563B, 8-phase plus 0. Now, these little tiny chips right here, let me see if I can zoom in on those little chips. I think you can see them actually on this. Okay, so these little chips are IR3599. They're actually very, very hard to photograph. And then we have IR3553 here. These are 40 amp power stages. You can see the extra pad space. That's for the 60 amp variant. These are 35 amp chokes, and then we have 2, 4, 6, 8 560 UF output capacitors, which are extremely high quality. So basically, the IR3563B will send out all its 8 phases. Each phase will go to one of these IR3599s. The IR3599s will actually work in doubler mode and just send out 2 PWM signals. So this one would provide to this and this MOSFET, right? Those power stages. That one would provide to those two. That one provide to those two. That one 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 to those two. And you get the idea, right? Alright, so that's the VRM there. Now if we want to cover the memory VRM right here, we can, I think we got to zoom out a little bit for this, because we might be a little bit too close. This is the IR3570, and the IR3570 is a 3+2 phase PWM, so it actually has an IR3598 right here, and the IR3598 actually is a doubler plus a dual driver, but also can work in dual driver mode. So you can feed it 2 PWM inputs from the IR3570, and it'll output those two here to these 2 phases without doubling anything. So that's pretty good. The other phases are going over here to power the PCH with all these MOSFETs. Okay, let me see anything else. Oh yeah, these are these 2 TPS 2546 chips, which are the USB 3.0 super fast speed charging chips that are required for USB 3.0 on-off charge. Here we have the 4.1 watt PCH. Gigabyte is using the, I believe, 642 combination here. They have 2 hubs. Here is one. This is the D7201210, and this is the exact same thing, the D720-210. And these are brand new USB super speed hubs. Okay, then this is the EC, right? I talked about the EC a little bit, and this provides extra fan control and all that stuff. This is the ITE, I think it's 8790E. There's no data sheet. This is the EC BIOS. The EC BIOS, you can actually see it's written EC BIOS on the board. And this provides extra fan control and maybe some OC features, stuff like that. Okay, and then the Super I/O here, these two combined provide everything that's Super I/O. So fan, all that stuff. Any ICs here? Oh yeah, here's my Marvel SE9230. It's a nice chip, you know. It does its job well, and I've actually had people maybe have issues with SATA Gen 2 devices on Intel ports, but switched to Marvel and it worked fine. This is because Intel needs to work on their support. So, because that's not a board issue, it's like among all boards. Okay, so the PCIe layout, I should also go over that. You see these 6 PCIe quick switches, sorry. 6 PCIe quick switches here. These each can switch 2 lanes, and so that means that these 16X slots are all from the PCH. Let me see if I can go over them right now. This is a full 16X, right? However, if you want to do two-way, then you do 16X, we'll go down to 8X. These 4 switches will switch 8X from here over here to make this 8X, 8X. However, if you want to put a third card in here for a crossfire, because SLI will not support this configuration, these 2 switches here will switch 4X from here down to here. So it'll be 8X, 4X, 4X, or 8X, 8X, or just 16X. 1, 2, 3. I don't see any other PCIe switches that could do that. So these all 3 have their own links to the PCH. So already that's 3 on the PCH. This is the ITE 8892E. This takes 1 PCIe lanes and provides 2 PCI ports. That gives you this, and then another PCI port. The other one goes through the VT6093, something like that. Yeah, VT6308P or 09P. And that'll provide you 2 1394A ports, which are internal right here. 1394. Yeah. Okay. So that's how that works. So that's being smart, right? Conserving PCIe lanes. So that's 3, 4, and then these 2 are 5. The 2 NICs are 6, 7. Yeah. Okay. So this board has to do the 6, 8, 4. So there's 6 SATA 6 ports from Intel for the Flex IO. Then there are 8 PCIe lanes, and then there are 4 USB 3.0. 2 of them go through hubs, and then 2 more just go directly to a lane. So that's pretty cool, right? Anyway, so we can move over to some of the other features of the board on the far side, and maybe get a nice zoom in here. I think I've already gone over all these chips, right? ALC 898, and then we got the line drivers, stuff like that. So I've already gone over that, right? And then this is that Intel i210, and this is the i217V, the brand new one. This is ultra low power, and so is this. This is the new Clarkville technology that comes with the PCH. So that's interesting to note. There's that other hub. And we move over here. I think this is the last chip I have to cover. So, so most of you guys know that you guys need level shifters, right? To get out video is always digital video out from, this time it's from the CPU, but it used to be from the PCH. Anyway, so the display port on the back doesn't require anything odd. However, you have 3 level shifters here, 1, 2, 3. 2 of these are for the HDMI, 2 HDMI ports, and 1 is for DVI. However, I think there are only a few of these outputs. So Gigabyte puts a switch here, so you can either use the DVI or use the HDMI. So that's why that's that little switch there. So I can just zoom out a little bit, and maybe you guys can get a nicer look of the UD5H for the Z87 platform. This board is actually pretty good. Has a lot of components on it. There's no backside chips or anything like that. This board is 6-layer PCB, which is all you really need for this kind of routing. You don't want to use more layers than you need, or else the memory overclocking won't be good. So this one, Gigabyte, is able to do really good memory overclocking without having to mess anything up. There's also a drivers and receivers chip somewhere around there. I can't seem to locate it at this time, but yeah, there it is. It's hiding underneath this. Actually, this is the last chip I need to cover because I haven't covered this yet. So there's a COM port on this motherboard, and the COM port is, I believe, right here. It actually says COM. And this little chip right here is a TI drivers and receivers, and this what gives you the COM port from the LPC bus from the Super I/O. Anything else? Anything else? Oh yeah, the BIOSes. We have dual 128 megabit BIOSes, which are 16 megabyte in size, and then a clock generator for all the PCIe devices. Okay, so that concludes this conclusion. I hope you enjoyed the review of the UD5H. If you have any questions or comments, please post them. I will answer them. Thank you.